Let's see. Where is that? Then I started riding mountain bikes again because I had stopped for a number of years. And then from that, riding mountain bikes, it sort of, I guess, reintroduced me into cycling because I had stopped for a number of years to climb and, sort of do other things. And then I wanted a steel bike. I couldn't really afford or justify building my own frame or buying my own frame and then building all the parts of, because they're just kind of expensive. And I had a welding background, so I just sort of decided to buy some tubes. Didn't have any tools, didn't have a space. Went online, picked up a tube set for my first steel, which is now a track bike, and sort of started from there. So the reason I went steel first is because I had never rode a steel frame. And everybody talks about steel is real and steel frames this and that, and I wanted to sort of experience it, and I had a little bit of experience welding thin steel, so I decided to just start. So I did 2 steel frames, one track bike, one sort of gravel all-road bike, I guess. And then I've always rode aluminum bikes, and I've always liked the way aluminum bikes looked with their really large diameter tubing. So I ended up buying a few sets of aluminum tubes to try welding aluminum. I hadn't done much welding aluminum outside of the little bit I did in trade school, 15 years ago, in high school, whenever that was. And I can't decide if I like steel frames or aluminum frames better. People always say that one is better than the other, so I'm going to try to do my best to build exactly the same thing out of steel and aluminum. They're both going to be single speed cyclocross bikes because I race cross in the fall. So over the next few months I'll build 2 frames identical, one steel, one aluminum, and then actually just see what's the difference is. Or could you tell? If I blindfolded you, do you think you could tell? I don't know if I could tell, so I guess we're gonna find out. What I enjoy about frame building, I guess, would be the craftsmanship, or the learning of a new skill. And you look at all these like old builders from the 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up until now, some incredible skilled workers producing unbelievable stuff. And it's just time just to learn something new. And I think I'd really love to one day to build a bike and bring it to a handmade bike show, or something along those lines, and just see what people think, because right now I just build frames for me. It's a little bit of artistry, and it's a little bit of, I guess, technical knowledge on the geometry and choosing the right tube. So why would I choose this tube over that tube, and things like that, and then learning that. And I'm learning that through building lots of frames for myself. I have quite short legs, but I like to ride a little bit larger of a bike, especially when it comes to a mountain bike. So it's getting a bike that fits me, because I'm building it for me. So I don't have to make a compromise for an off-the-shelf bike where it's either a little bit long here and a little bit short there. I can just sort of make it exactly how I want. And then I also don't have to follow sort of the, I guess you call them the industry standards of, this is what a mountain bike of this style should be. It should be this many degrees, it should be this long. So I can just sort of try whatever I want. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit of choosing proportions for a frame. I like to have it all sort of make sense. I like the way, little details of how tubes meet up at certain angles and spacings, and keeping the lines flowing and clean. The thing I like about bikes is they're so incredibly simple, but yet so complicated. So my process sort of starts with, I guess, sketches in my notebooks, writing down what I want to be riding, not necessarily the type of bike, because I don't think saying that you want, a mountain bike or an enduro bike or a cross-country bike really means anything to me. It's like, what are you going to be riding and what are you going to be doing? And then from there it's like, well, what do I need? I want a steel frame. So I started looking at sort of tubes and tube sets that would sort of fit, I guess, the ride characteristics that I'm looking for. And then what do I want? I want to be able to carry lots of stuff. So having extra mounts for, maybe 3 or 4 water bottles on the frame, building a rack perhaps, and then from there getting all sort of those ideas down and then going onto a program called BikeCAD, which is a really simple program to use. It's sort of a design program for bikes, and I sort of use that program to design the frame. I gather all my materials from Italy. So once I have everything, and then it just comes down to the time to build it. I have no fancy tools, I have no milling machine, I have no lathe, I have no nothing. I do everything with a hacksaw and files and my welder. So you don't need a ton of space, you don't need a ton of tools, but there are ways to do it cheaply. Like you could go with a simpler jig that you built yourself, you can go with a torch, or you can do a lugged frame or a fillet brazed frame. You're sort of limited to steel. But once I sort of have a design finalized and I'm ready to build, I'm sort of between, I guess, 20 and 40 hours. I don't really log how long it takes me because I don't really care, because it's just for me. Like, it's not a business at this point in time. Not to say that I won't sell bikes in the future. I think I would like to sell some frames in the future, but right now I'm very content just building whatever I want to build with no customer, no person to worry about liking it other than myself. So after that, then it's just a matter of building. I have a dozen files, a hacksaw with a couple of blades, and that's really all you need in order to cut the tubing and get everything to the correct shapes and sizes. And then once I have everything to the correct shapes and sizes, I put it in my frame jig. And then once it's in the frame jig, I might have to adjust certain things because maybe they don't fit perfectly, and I want them to fit sort of as best as I can because it makes it easier for welding. So everything's in the frame jig. And then there's the pretty big step of sort of cleaning everything. Having really clean starting material makes everything easier. So after that, then it's just a matter of taking the time to weld it. And of the whole process, cutting and filing is probably 50% of the time for me. I would think at least 50% of the time, maybe more. It's quite a slow process, but it's kind of a nice, I don't know, call it meditative state. You're just filing away for hours and hours and hours. Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. Am I going to make more? Absolutely. I think and just being okay with that, and just learning like, well, I'm not going to do that again for this, X, Y, and Z. And I think next time I'll try A, B, and C instead and see if that's a better result, or maybe not better, maybe just a different result. I think there's maybe a resurgence or an increased popularity as of late with sort of handmade anything, and really handmade shoes or handmade bags, or in my case bicycles. And I think people are starting to appreciate things that are no longer mass production and built for you, bespoke or custom or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, there's quite a large, I don't know if I'd call it large, there's definitely quite a lot of people building frames now, whether that's because there's more resources or courses, I don't know. The reason I, started is I just wanted to try it. I wanted my own custom bike. I can't afford to buy a custom bike from somebody, so I spent more than that money on tools. And now I've built myself a bunch of custom bikes. So in theory, I'm making money on myself. I think what I want people to get out of it is just to start something, whether that be, leather working, or, in this case, bike building or whatever. Just start and just try, and then, I'm going to take this journey, or whatever you want to call it, of bike building, and just see where it takes me and what I learn along the way, and sort of share that with people and be very honest with my mistakes and things I've made. Try to learn from that, because I'm not a professional. There are people who make these beautiful $10,000 bicycles. That is not me. Maybe it will be one day, but right now this is sort of the beginning of this journey that I'm going to try to share with people. And you don't need as much as you probably think you need. You don't need all these fancy tools and equipment and all that stuff. And that could be said for a lot of things. Just keep it simple and just start. And if you don't like it, if you haven't invested all this time and money into these really expensive machines, then you're not really at that much of a loss, because you learned something and you tried something.